Well, today's guest on the podcast needs no introduction to most sports fans in the UK, having done excellent work for many of the major broadcasters, both at home and further afield, and with a huge body of work in football as well as several other sports. Today's guest, the brilliant Kate Mason, speaks to us about life as a Spurs fan, the path to working in sports broadcasting, and her excellent documentary relating to the Qatar World Cup. Very quickly though, before I hand over to Kate and Charlie, let us tell you a few quick words about today's partners, HelloFresh. HelloFresh are on a mission to make your mealtimes easier with pre-portioned ingredients, quick and easy recipe cards, and plenty of treats we can get on board with too. Get 60% off your first box plus free dessert for life by clicking a link at the top of the description. Sounds good, doesn't it? I've tried it before, I'm a big fan of the brand and have helped with my weight loss this year too. There's healthy options available, so why not grab your discount and give HelloFresh a go from the description below.
And I'm delighted to say that Kate joins me now. So yeah, Kate, thank you very much. I know that there's been a few back and forth with Aladdin and a few other bits and bobs getting in the way, which is a nice time. But yeah, just thank you very much for joining us today. And yeah, it's great to hear about your football story, really.
Not at all. Thank you so much for having me, Charlie. I'm really glad we've got the chance to. I must say, like recently, when I've been doing podcasts with friends and people I've met, like you, I found myself hungover quite often. And today, I'm not. I host some friends last night. I'm not. It's not a proper hangover.
No.
But it is. We should say perhaps that it is the morning when we're talking to each other.
Before. Yeah.
Yeah, and
so...
I'm not really a morning person. So if I find myself, telling the anecdote twice or waffling on, you just tell me to shut up and
No.
Well,
I appreciate you doing this even more than given the last night's antics. So yeah, no, that's all good. Kate, I'll just go back to the beginning like we do with everyone really, and just your first ever memory of football, be it watching, playing. What's your sort of first memory of the beautiful game, really?
Well, I mean, apart from kind of pottering about in the garden trying to like connect with a football, which is, I mean, I don't even know what age that would be, but I was always I was brought up an only child, so I was always always very keen on kind of all sports, trying to hit things and run around kind of in a crazy way from when I was tiny. And when I was very little, my parents, so as a result of my dad's job mainly, we lived in all sorts of places that sound quite glamorous, but when you're like a tiny kid, you don't really notice what's going on apart from that there was sunshine. So
Right.
when I was a little kid, we lived in Bermuda, and so there wasn't like kind of a football culture, if you like. It's more like I think it's if we want to go really historical about this, I think it was like a British protectorate or something, so it's something to do with Britain, but it's very near to the United States, so much more of like an American culture. And back then, like soccer, well, not a thing in the way that it's starting to be today, and with people like David Beckham kicking around with teams. So yeah, anyway. And it would have been the earliest World Cup was the one that England wasn't in. What is that? The earliest 94? World Cup I can remember, 94, right? Yeah. And so I feel like I have memories of this, but I don't know. It's hard, isn't it, when you're like, what's a learned memory? But whatever. The family myth is that because England weren't in a World Cup, my dad was then like, oh, just choose a team, like so that you can support somebody, because that is, to be honest, like that is the fun of football, isn't it? Like really backing somebody. And I don't know if you do this, but quite often, even if I'm just watching a random like second division Italian team, like Italian Serie B game, whatever, you'll just pick a team that you're going to support vigorously. So anyway, Germany apparently was the team that I chose.
Not that's a back a favourite or something like that, really. Like you could have gone a lot more niche, couldn't you, I suppose, but Bulgaria or something like that. But,
yeah, I decided I was going to support Germany. I think my dad had had lived in Germany, whatever. I thought this was cool. Anyway, on the upside, they had Jurgen Klinsmann playing for them. I'm a Tottenham fan. Subsequently, you know, whatever. I supposedly had knowledge of this. I mean, I'm like 6 or 7 at this point, so who knows how much interest I really was able to display in this. But yes, that is as far as I can tell, that's my first kind of awareness of like watching the game rather than just kind of patting about a ball and trying to.
Well, that was sort of going to lead on then in that sense, because obviously you're quite openly a Spurs fan as well. Is where did that sort of come from? But is that to do with the '94 World Cup and Klinsmann, or like,
can you imagine what a way in? I mean, yeah, I guess probably. No, I think like so my mum is a Wolves fan, and she used to go. She's got lots of stories of, you know, because back in the day, like kids wouldn't need tickets. I don't know how much of a. You know, she's about to get arrested later on, but you know,
I'll catch up with you for that. To be fair, I think you'll be all right.
I had someone on. I was chatting to someone the other day actually on a. I've been doing a few shows called Football Gods where people come on and talk to me about like what they would do if they were gods. And one of them admitted to being part of a pitch of an invasion, and there was like, oh God, I don't know if I should, do we need to cut this out? Are we going to get arrested? Anyway, no, yes, in the 70s or the 60s or whatever, my mum was going totally free to Wolves games. So she was quite keen that I should be a Wolves fan. But I mean, yeah, we as I mentioned, we were living abroad, but then the kind of home that we came back to was in Northamptonshire, so it wasn't like local to there. London always just seemed like this really exciting place, and my dad, who was from London, was a Tottenham fan. Not in any, he's not like super committed or anything. You're not gonna. I think also he's one of those ones who was quite put off by the kind of let's call them the challenges of going to football in the 80s. So yeah, he wasn't like, you know, you've got to here's the Gospel of Glenn Hoddle, you've got to like whatever.
Put the VHS out or whatever in that sense. So
yeah, exactly. But there was a sense of like that there was a bit of heritage in that respect. And so yeah, it wasn't really until I got the chance to move to London, so like after university, that I was able to regularly go to the game. And I think this is quite a common, you'll probably have seen this, people more like our age. You know, football fans I talk to from who were watching football in the 80s or earlier, you know, you could go and it'll be cheap and it'll be fairly easy to go. Whereas for me, like it's pretty bloody expensive. And it's almost like a privilege to get to go to some of the games. So
no, I completely agree with you. I think that's that we were probably in that transition period, weren't we? Like you say, and I think as much as the 90s is well sort of thought of, it did definitely start to price people out, unfortunately, didn't it? In that sense. And
I think now I'm all like, let's go and watch. You know, I think it's so expensive, and I know a lot of the time people are writing about this stuff and talking about especially at Spurs, you know, with the money going up and up, and people talking about their season tickets. And obviously me now working in sports, at the moment quite often not in football, which like obstructs the, you know, quite often I'll be away if I want to go to a game, and I would say to people, like some of my friends who are becoming football fans, which is quite fun to see, like girls, I guess it's opened up to more. I'm quite encouraging of people to go to like non-league or girls games, you know, stuff that's cheap, right? Because the thing you get is the kind of camaraderie and the fun of it. Like, watching on telly beautiful football is pretty great, but just the vibe of it, like being around it is.
I've always said this, Kate, to be honest. Like, I know, you know, watching the Premier League and you got all of the, you know, the elite level and whatnot, but sometimes there is nothing better than a bit of a windy day, a big ball to the centre forward who like flicks it on for a little man to run on and smash it in the corner. You know, I know it's not beautiful, but it is in a sense, isn't there? And I think sometimes people aren't interested in, like, I'm a West Ham fan. I had a season ticket a few years ago. I went and watched Man City beat us 5-0, and it's soul destroying because you get about 20% of possession. You just played off the pitch, and you think, oh, can someone just like lump a ball up front somewhere or something just to make it a bit more exciting? So I get that. I do get for the purists, obviously, what it's about. But yeah, I'm completely with you on that. And that's sort of where this podcast comes from. Is we would probably do a lot more non-league and lower league stuff, really, because you know there's a lot of coverage on the Premier League, and rightly so. But I suppose it is quite nice just to talk about other levels of football, like you were saying, in that sense. So yeah.
How are you feeling about this? Sorry to ask about the stadium, because I guess everyone must. But I've been a number of times now. My main memory of it, though, is from London 2012, so I'll
Yeah.
always have like an affection for the stadium, which is a weird thing for a Spurs fan to say. But yeah, have you?
You know what, Kate? It was the first. So I actually, my season ticket the first year I had it was when they first moved there, and if I'm honest, it was a disaster the first probably 6 or 7
Yeah.
games. It hadn't been logistically planned out. I mean, not to go on about football hooliganism or anything like that, but the very first game against Bournemouth, the way they'd messed up the gate, so I had to walk through the away end to get to my seat, and I thought it's okay, not that it should be about that kind of thing, but Bournemouth is a fairly safe fan base, but you know yourself for London derbies and things, it could get a little bit more interested with police and stuff. So it was just so many teething problems, and even then, I mean, the distance from the pitch is they can try and square it off, but we're not idiots. You know what I mean? You're still about 70 foot away, so you're never gonna. It was a cheaper ticket, to be honest. I'll probably be a bit tight, you know, in that sense of going a bit further up or whatever. But yeah, it is. It's not the same as any ground, but I don't know. I think Spurs have done it a lot better. I think they've done it a lot better. Obviously, the two transitions between the stadiums. Because I think they've kept that atmosphere, whereas it's been very much diluted. But to sum it all up for me was we had played Burnley on a Tuesday night, and the season ticket holders in front of me weren't there. It was a load of lads from Canary Wharf in suits, and I thought, blooming heck, like, and they were like, oh yeah, we're just sort of showing people some sights from America. I think, well, Burnley on a Tuesday, like that's a hell of a
sight. That is a sight.
Do you know what I mean? And it wasn't, as I say, it wasn't even like a big time. I think it ended 0-0 or 1-0 or something like that. Robert Snodgrass scored, so you couldn't get much more Premier League than Robert Snodgrass 1-0 against Burnley, could you? So it was in that sense. So do you know what I mean? Awesome. That to me summed it up then, like in that sense.
I think that's quite good. I'm glad that the American fans or whatever, tourists, that's what they, at least they're getting
think about. Like, you know, you might go to New York, you might, I don't know, watch the New York Giants or the Jets or something, but it's not the same as watching Burnley on a Tuesday where Sean Dyche has come for a 0-0 draw or whatever. Do you know what I mean? And just sort of like, you know, so yeah, I think that opened their eyes a bit. I didn't see him again, if that's any consolation. So I obviously had an effect on him. So do you know what I mean? That was the level of their. That's probably what they thought about Premier League football. So it probably put them off in that sense. But no, to answer your question, yeah, it's not the same.
No, it's tricky. I mean, we've been very lucky with Tottenham, I think, because there was always that huge thing of leaving White Hart Lane, and those stadiums, like the old school, or the original ones, if you like. There's something really special about the way the sound moves and just the memories in the walls, you know, the history of that. And so I'm quite impressed by the way that Tottenham have managed to create something that feels like it's got that still. You know, there's like plaques up about where different bits of the stadium like relate to the old stadium. And I guess because it's been done so well, I feel like there's a sense of pride and ownership to it. That's how I feel anyway, and people I've talked to feel that way. And then the benefit of being close to the pitch, whatever the magic is of how it's been designed, you know, because with you guys, you were getting like a deal. I think that was I felt quite jealous of that, right? So that was the decision. That was the decision that was made as sort of like, yes, this isn't perfect, but we're getting a deal, so you know, let's take that. And I can kind of get behind that. But then of course, once you've had your deal and then you're in the stadium, if it's not been fully designed for football, like you're kind of feeling that every time. Whereas it really felt like the way that, from what I've heard since, and I know a lot of people have issues with how Daniel Levy runs the club, and today's not the day to get into those, but like in terms of what I've heard about how the money was spent and how the stadium was designed, he was literally like, excuse French, but he was like, fucking, you know, like, do it. Whatever you want to do to make this perfect, you can have that money. And wow, like, he definitely didn't need to do that. Like, we could have had a much less special stadium and a lot less perfectness.
But I think, like you say, the primary purpose, obviously, of White Hart Lane is football. Whereas I think it's still there's still that athletic. They can try and hide the track, but everyone knows, you know, I mean, it's an interesting stadium to go to. But the thing for me, and I'm not like you're talking about drinking stuff earlier, there's no pubs around the ground. So it's even that side of the sort of, they have these pop-up tents of like the
What, so you in Westfield or what? Is that what you're doing?
You go through the shopping, pretty much through the shopping
because I've been through and I've wondered where I wouldn't necessarily want to go to the like Ask Italian or whatever.
You go to Fresno's or whatever to get 4 pints, you know, like, so it's not quite the same, is it? As
lovely Peroni.
You know, but the thing is, it's these crap plastic bottles that you're getting, like, you know, do you know what I mean? Those pop-up tents, and they just dot around because it's like obviously a big sort of boat shape, isn't it? So they just dot around there. So there's no pubs nearby, and I think that's part of going to a game for some people, obviously not for everyone. I do get that. But that does
Yeah.
help, I think, with the atmosphere as well. Not that people need to be pissed to watch it, but some
No,
some
even if
games
you're
you
not
probably do.
drinking.
But, you know,
Yeah, depending on the game. Even if you're not drinking, it's a nice. You want to be in your comfortable place, right?
So I think there's elements of that have been lost. I think that's probably added to some. Whereas I think some grounds have managed to obviously keep hold of that thing with Spurs a bit more. Still in the community almost. To be honest, I think to sum it up, But yeah. Sorry, you've managed to sum up in what I did about 5 minutes. You did about 2. So you can tell you're a professional out of 2 of us. So
Thank you.
In that sense,
You're the one who's a professional communicator, though, because you went to the aren't you, Charlie?
Monday to Friday, I'll switch off on a Saturday. It's gone. So it is. But yeah, no. So again, we mentioned about my sort of job as a teacher. I sort of wanted to take a pause a little bit from you, the sort of football fan, and actually about just so maybe I'm being slightly self-indulgent here, but just talking about your sort of journey through sports, because actually, you've even said yourself, and people who even know a little bit about your career will know that you're not exclusive to football. And I'm quite jealous of you because I feel like someone like you takes up any sport and just knows loads about it. A bit like learning languages, like you're one of those people who can learn like 5 languages and be fluent in all of them. So I think my sort of question to you is really, where did it come from? Because if you don't mind me saying, we both probably grew up around the same sort of time. And definitely there was a disparity between, my experience of PE at primary school and maybe yours just by our gender and things like that. So I don't know, where did that sort of love of sport in general come from? And what was that like for you as a child, I suppose?
Oh, great question. Yeah, I think, thank you, by the way, for saying that about picking up the sports. I think that's probably, like, in terms of broadcasting, I think that's probably a slightly different thing in that what I try and do is figure out, when I'm broadcasting, I try and figure out what the storyline is. And that's something, when I've spoken to like really good broadcasters, like I've been lucky enough to meet Claire Balding and Mark Chapman a few times and talk to them about it. It's about figuring out the stories, like what is going to interest the random person who's not paid that much attention and maybe doesn't even fully know how like the points work out, or how this is playing out, like what are the key stories. So that comes from I guess a love of almost like I studied English at university, like almost like a love of the storylines from that perspective. But my experience of my love of sport as something to do is from, I guess it ties into that. The kind of win-lose thing, of course, is I am a pretty competitive person. Fine. I don't want to pretend that that's not the case, because you might get letters if any of my friends.
No. I don't think it's the worst sort of trait to have.
No, but if I were to claim that I was not, then people would probably pick up on various games of Monopoly that have descended into chaos. But in terms of like sport and the endorphins around it, I think that was the first thing for me. Just like, because I mentioned, I grew up somewhere sunny and not England, and so there was a lot of like running around outside, and I'm very much like a sun baby. Just I like being out. Right now it's beautiful sunshine, and hopefully it's the start of summer here. So just like the chance to get out. I was so lucky. I got the chance to do a lot of swimming as well. That was something that swimming for me a bit too boring. Like
No, I'm glad you said that. Honestly, the amount of people I've spoken to. And anyway, sorry, go on. You carry on. Sorry. It's just,
no, but it's as to train, like, my God, it is. You have to respect those people for managing to do it, because it is tough, and especially English swimmers. Oh my God. So anyway, yes. When we lived abroad, I was like swimming every day, just as kind of a fun thing. So I got to be quite decent at it when I was little. This is like 6 or whatever. And then when we moved back to England, I was like, whoa, this is a whole other thing. Like, you're expecting me to get up in the ice and no. So yeah, I think it came from that luck of like being abroad in a place where it was sunny all the time, and it was just very like physically active place, local kids. We would just have a kickabout and all that sort of stuff, but not in the proper sense, just like running around with whatever was around, paddle bats or so at that stage, I never really, there was never kind of male female divide. It didn't feel like, or maybe there was and I didn't notice. When we moved back to England, I was I like started playing rugby a bit, and I wanted to play football, but had a bit of like, it's a bit of a shame. Like, I've got a lot of those kind of experiences where suddenly having had that just completely neutral, positive, like I'm quite naturally athletic, so it was never a challenge. I didn't think I wouldn't be doing these things, but yeah, kind of gradually, one by one, I came to notice that I wasn't the norm, and I wasn't really expected to be good or expected to be involved. And it's quite sad. And looking back on it now, now we see I'm going tomorrow. You got to get it in. Got to talk about it. To watch Tottenham women in the bloody FA Cup final, and I'm so excited. And kids hopefully today don't have this experience. Although you'll be able to tell me. I think that they do still, but at least we have got lots more role models of women who are making a living playing sport. So then that becomes more elevated. It's possible for people to be professionals and to be respected in their industries. But I don't, apart from tennis, probably, I don't think that existed when I was a kid. And so there was no way of pushing back when someone's like, you're not welcome here. Not in those words, but in those words. There's no way for like a 10-year-old or an 8-year-old, whenever I was, to be like, no, but why not? Because there's Beth England playing, and why would I not be able to? So I have so much respect for people like Kelly Smith and all these other girls who came through at that time, because they must have had to, well, they've talked about it, many of them, they had to push through people just not welcoming them. So yeah, I feel a bit sad about it, because there's lots and lots of sports that I sort of tried to play and got to some level. And with cricket, I wanted to play cricket as well, and I've been lucky enough to now work in cricket, so I feel like that's come around a bit, and I now have joined a cricket team as well, so that's really fun.
Oh, very good.
Yeah, and girls, women from like 10 to 60, it's so cute to see how each of them are like where they are on their sporting development. But I really wanted to play cricket, I really wanted to play football, and I just, some people have got more of a strength of character where they're like, okay, people aren't making me feel that welcome, but I'm gonna just do it anyway. And unfortunately that wasn't me. But also on the plus side, I had lots of other things that I was interested in. Like I was quite a big geek. Like I really like learning like lessons and stuff. I played the violin. I took that pretty seriously. I got into acting. So lots of these things might not have happened if I'd been playing football how many times a week that I initially intended to do. And then also that's why I got into squash, because it was just more open. Like the girls and boys played at the same time. There was you could play, it was same number of games, like the whole sport is the same. I was playing guys, there was not that many good girls locally, so I just play the boys, and it was pretty much normal. So that's a very long-winded answer, but yeah, there's a kind of an internal conflict, I think, still probably for me within sport.
Yeah, no, I think though, to be honest, like it sounds like you say, some of that's come to fruition later on, even the acting. I know, for example, like Sports Horn and things like that. I know it's it is elements. I can't be honest, I actually love that show. I'm going on a slight tangent there, but anyway, that's that kind of thing.
I don't know who you're talking. That's a completely other person, Charlie. I don't know.
Sorry, I don't want to reveal the magic. Sorry. They've hidden your name well, anyway. In that sense, but yeah. So it is. But no. So yeah. So I think in that sense, I think for me, like actually, maybe you're doing yourself a slight disservice in that there was a lot of impact even now, but in your sort of career from those days. But I just feel like the lack of opportunities back then, I think it requires a lot of perseverance, and you're probably a good example of that, to still make that sort of work and that kind of thing. Because I think there's a lot of people, maybe of our generation, who didn't quite get the same opportunities based on their gender. And unfortunately, then that led to maybe them not taking up the things that they wanted to do or could do. But I think you're a good example and a bit of a pioneer like that. So I think that's a compliment to yourself in that sense. But so moving on to that, then obviously you mentioned university. You actually studied, was it English, wasn't it? I think you were doing. So how did that sort of then, did you go from there to essentially being where you are now? Not obviously like right this moment into broadcasting and that kind of thing, and that sort of journey in between the two, really.
So I think my mum was an English teacher, so I was, she was like learning and all that stuff was very important in my household. And she probably, I didn't necessarily have a choice, particularly that I wouldn't study English. Like that was kind of the path there was, but I really, really enjoyed it. She's a great teacher, and so helped me a lot in terms of what I was getting into, and books and stuff that I might want to read. And I was lucky, I got into Cambridge, so I was I think that was just my aim. I just thought, wow, if I could get into Cambridge, that's just such like a massive thing that I should just go and do it and figure out like what things interest me kind of after that. So I didn't really have a path planned out, but I just thought it would be such an awesome place to be, because there's so many people doing so many different things. You know, there's like, you hear about, you know, like David Mitchell on Peep Show, and those guys, like they met, that's where they met. There's like, you know, amateur dramatics clubs that you can be a part of. There was like an orchestra that I was in. I played squash for the university. We got to play in these like amazing venues that you wouldn't, you know, it's everything was so, the opportunities that I'm just breaking out that the opportunities were like amazing. So when I was there, I was just sort of trying to find my feet and figure out like what work would look like and what curiosity I had. And in terms of broadcasting, I'd always thought, you know, because I'd watched so much sport, and I'd always thought it would be cool to be a part of it, but I just didn't. I don't know where I thought people came from if they were broadcasters. And I honestly, like, I started to be aware of Claire Balding. She actually also went to Cambridge, so I thought, oh, okay, this is someone who's not been an athlete, or, you know, I know people say like she did horse racing and stuff, but it, you know, that's an exact, it's as much as like I played squash, it's not like she was a professional. And I think just realizing, and again on the being female thing, just realizing that people could, you know, Gabby Logan as well, a great example, people could do it. And that even if I didn't have a clue about what the path would be, just knowing that people could do it. So I wasn't counted out by the fact that, you know, I wasn't a guy and I hadn't done whatever. So yeah, in that initial phase, I just did everything at university. I wrote some match reports, you know, like I was doing some theatre reviews, and there was a radio station as well. So I was like doing a radio show. So yeah, I just tried to learn absolutely bloody everything that I could. And then I was like, right, what next? So my next plan, as far as it existed, was, where are you going to be? I mean, there's not much telly work going on in Northamptonshire in the countryside. So there was, my local radio station was Hereward FM, and I did try and like infiltrate the building one day. I just sort of like walked in because I figured out where it was. It was just by the shopping centre, but I didn't get far. I sort of walked in, was like, hello, I'd like to meet, you know, the boss. And they were like, okay, cool. We'll call you. I
live in Luton. I do what you mean. It is that sort of vibe, isn't it? It's a bit more sort of, you can just walk into a radio station. It's not like London, is it? You know, in that sense. People might look at you a bit funny, but yeah, it's that kind of vibe, isn't it? But yeah, sorry, you were saying so.
Yeah, so that didn't create any great contact. But I just thought, what I'll do is I'll just get a job, any old job, some sort of job that means I can move to London. So I like put my CV on some you know, recruiter website. You could just like upload it for free, blah blah blah, all that stuff, and went to a bunch of interviews for things. And I don't really know how I got the job that I did get, which was like a sales job, but it was said to be like a graduate trainee role, so they were gonna like train me up to do something like that. Not sure. Luckily they didn't seem to have a big plan of that, because I spent my entire time just like going off to little meetings with people about sport and broadcasting, and how could I so it was great. I very much appreciate the job that I was given. And
lots
the
of
reason
turning
that
up at radio stations, then, basically, is that what you're sort of
exactly. So I would go into, like, I would have to go into the office. The company was Autonomy, right? So I don't know if you remember them. They were the shirt sponsor of Tottenham. So I didn't, this was why I went into that meeting, rather than, there was like a whole load of places you could apply, and I just sort of vaguely recognized this one. It was like, cool, in we go. Hi, I can do this and this, whatever. We were set a task, right? And I guess that went okay. So yes, so I moved to London, and then I just managed to like cram in, like meeting people, and I got, but actually I tell you what, why the sales thing was useful is that you have to call people, and you have to like make a list of who you're supposed to talk to, and like what is going on, like what interests or what the business is. And I used that learning to try and figure out how I could meet people in sports broadcasting. So I like made a spreadsheet, and just every time I met somebody, I would then, hello, is there anybody I could talk to who might, it must have been very fucking annoying, to be honest. Like it is tough, like when, because people, you know, people ask me, can you chat to me about like how I could get a job? And it's like, I don't really know, but I'll try and think of someone else that I could give you to talk to. So yeah, just made a massive list, and it's not a good story, but that's basically it. I met one person, they said, no, I don't know. I met another person, they said, oh, maybe talk to this guy. He didn't have anything. And I just ended up getting really tiny little gigs. Someone suggested doing travel news, and I was like, okay, cool, on the radio. Because what I really wanted to do was a lot of hours of broadcasting, because my thing is, and this is why it's a really tricky career to get into, is you can't be a good broadcaster unless you spent a lot of hours broadcasting. So you have to find a place where you can do a lot of hours without people getting so put off by how bad you are they never give you a job ever again. So yeah, so I managed to do a whole load of like, oh, you know, it's chocker on the A14 coming into wherever, and honestly, just being able to talk about stuff that I didn't know anything about.
You don't slip into that mode now, do you, when you're out and about with your friends still, and sort of like, you know, just when
like
you're
advising
out
them
on whatever, just start giving travel updates of like, you know.
People did used to, find that was hilarious to request, as you can imagine. Yeah, so that sort of thing, just every time trying to find little places where I could do work. And I ended up doing, you know, voiceovers for football highlights clips in the like basement at ITN, which shows ITV, but we were doing it for like websites and stuff, nothing high profile and all that sort of thing. Little gigs where I'd go out with a camera and just, no one really wanted this, but I just like film a match report or whatever, and try and give it to Metro, who I now actually have a column with. So it's amazing it's amazing how even those like 10 or 12 years ago relationships when I was just so annoying and so inept, still like there was a relationship that was built
it feels
up
a bit
there.
like when a player lets a club go as a youth player and then they buy him again, you know, later on, about 10 years later, when they're suddenly a superstar. So it's a bit like that, isn't it? I suppose they, you know, they let you go back then, and now they re-signed you later on or whatever. So
I like that comparison a lot. That's very flattering comparison. Yeah. So basically, to sum it up, yeah, I sort of did a lot of tiny things and gradually got more confident in what I knew how to do. And the real luck, probably, or the real thing that made me a half decent broadcaster, was that I met somebody who knew about workout in Qatar. And I never even really heard of the place, to be honest. This was apart from that it was gonna host the World Cup for some bizarre reason. I didn't know a lot about it. My boyfriend at the time actually had worked out in the Arab world for several years, so he spoke a bit of Arabic, weirdly, or a lot of Arabic. So I kind of, it felt like a place that I'd be interested to know more about. And anyway, I ended up getting a job with, well, it's Al Jazeera Sport, but it's called beIN Sport. And through a fair bit of negotiation, said, "Oh yeah, can I come and present a bit of a show?" And yeah, went out there for 2 years, and that meant that I was doing like regular, being on telly with the whole setup, you know, with the proper gallery and people talking to you in your ear, and you know, things being difficult. But also the fundamental element, not that many people that would ultimately be employing me were watching the early days of me being quite terrible at TV broadcasting. So yeah, I think that was the big moment in terms of getting some real stable, repeated exposure to the job that I wanted to do, and just really, really learning to do that. And so then when I got a gig on Sky Sports News, which was again another one of those ones where you get hours and hours and hours of live broadcasting, then I was comfortable enough and that I could benefit from the work that gave me.
So yeah, I sort of wanted to, I mean, you mentioned Qatar there, Kate, anyway, in that sense. So obviously I know there was that journey between sort of Sky Sports News and that side of it. I just wanted to sort of touch really across, we'll go a bit more detail in your sort of Qatar documentary, award-winning, no less as well. But just about as a broadcaster in general, be it football or other sports, it's just that impartiality element. I've always been fascinated by people who work in your industry. Like, how easy is that? And particularly maybe having allegiance, say Spurs. I mean, maybe not. I'm thinking of an example like, you know, Faye Carruthers, she's a Luton fan. She might have to report on this Nottingham Forest points deduction as an example. Like, how do you maintain that impartiality? And is it hard to do? Do you have to bite your tongue sometimes and that kind of thing?
I think it comes down to what I mentioned a bit earlier about the sort of the story side of things, or the journalism, trying to explain things as well as you can to your audience. So yeah, in terms of like, if it's I I don't think I've hardly ever had any like Tottenham games. I mean, on sports news, yeah, sometimes there'll be like I did the Gareth Bale announcement, which was pretty cool. But you can just like, that's more like that's like entertainment. You're just kind of you're being enthusiastic. You could be being enthusiastic anyway. You know, most of it's pretty much scripted. So I think just giving it a bit of a is like just nice for people probably. And it's not like I'd be like an Arsenal signing, grr, this is so bad or whatever. So yeah, I think that for most people, and this is why I think a bit of training is helpful. Many people who are doing this at a level where they're like on a national channel on national TV, I think they've got the interests of the delivering the information at heart. So I think certainly in my case, my aim is to try and explain something clearly, or to if I'm like podcasting or speaking about something, or if I'm delivering an update, the aim is to tell the story in an interesting way. So if an allegiance, like if it is Tottenham related and I can give it a bit, if that will add to the kind of experience of the listener, then I might mention it. But that'd be for more like a chat radio style thing. But for telly, it's like what is in the interest of the viewer. And it's not about me, like people are interested often in people who are on the TV, and that's fair enough. Why not? But my aim is to like convey the excitement of whatever sport it is, whatever moment it is, in the clearest way possible, and hopefully with the most apt information. So it wouldn't be right for me to apply bias to that, because I'm trying to work in the service of the story. Does that make any sense?
No, it does a lot. No. It was just because obviously you work in that industry, it was just sort of fascinating, really, because it's quite easy for me as a football fan to sit with my mates down the pub and just say this, that, and the other. But obviously, where that line is for you, I suppose, I'm obviously you're professional and you're well versed in all of that. But just the sort of the mindset of how hard it is, even internally, sometimes, whether you're sort of thinking.
I think sometimes there is, and I didn't know about this either when I was. And I think because the idea of what journalism has been a bit lost. I think, what with Donald Trump like attacking the idea of the media and considering it to be like an entity that's kind of shady and all that stuff. If we're going really back to like stuff you learn in school, like the idea of journalism is, in its purest form, is it's supposed to be the fourth estate, i.e. it's supposed to be keeping the judiciary, the powers, like the government to account. Clearly in sport we're not doing that so much. However, there is an element to that, and that's one of the reasons why I'm very proud of having made that Qatar documentary. There is an element where normal people like you or me, if you were to become is this part of your route to becoming a broadcast journalist? I don't know, but I'm sure you're enjoying your own career as well. But part of this is about thinking that it is important for people to ask questions and for people to do research and for people to be informed, and that really is the role of journalists. Now, I'm sure there are people working in dodgy ways. We know there are. We've seen this phone hacking thing and and there's people who don't treat it with the respect it deserves. But I think when people do, Martin Lewis, the guy who does the money saving expert stuff, he's a great example of that. He speaks incredibly passionately about how important it is for you to kind of stand up for the rights of the individual. This is very grandiose, but especially in the context of me just like, it's 2-1 Luton or whatever. But like that but that ultimately is what it's about. And I think Twitter and social media and all this stuff, and some people it's great that people should have voices and that fan voices should be out there, but I think sometimes the distinction between the two things is forgotten. Like shouting about a decision, which I absolutely can do and do and get very emotional about.
Don't do it tomorrow, whatever you do. No, I'm joking. Sorry, go ahead.
But that is something that anybody can do and anybody has the right to do. But in terms of trying to assess and trying to explain, that is supposed to be a profession. And people, I think, if they're going to be in that industry, I think people should work at that. And I think people should treat it with respect. And sometimes that doesn't happen because of the kind of disparate way that these things work now.
I think there's a lot of responsibility there, isn't there, that you're saying actually
Yeah.
that comes with that
Yeah.
industry. I know we obviously see the glamorous side of it. I was going to get onto that a bit later on, maybe in that bit with another question. But in terms of that responsibility, obviously, you know, we've alluded to it a couple of times, your documentary about the Qatar, you know, World Cup and that sense, which is amazing. I know, you know, people haven't listened to it, you know, the huge platform that we've got here, but, you know, it'd be, you know, I think they should, because it is incredible. Just so maybe you touch on a bit maybe about how it come about, but also like we were just all mentioning, really, that responsibility, did that weigh a bit heavier given maybe the nature of some of the conversations that you were having to have and the nature of the sort of some parts of the documentary in that sense?
Yeah, it's a tough thing because, you know, every time you go to work in this industry, you're obviously learning, and the, you know, I mentioned about going and learning to live broadcast. I was lucky that then when opportunities have come along, I've kind of been ready for it. I haven't been like super stressed about like, can I present live on Sky? I definitely can. I just have done it on a different channel. So, but with something like that, it's trying to talk about the intricacies of something that involves politics, human rights, like people dying. Yeah, like that is something that, yeah, you know, I studied, but it's hard to be sure that you're definitely getting it right in everything that you're doing. And so you have to just lean on people that you've seen doing it. So I contacted a few other like serious big documentary makers, including the people behind the Louis Theroux stuff, to have conversations just about their views on like what some of the responsibilities where I felt like I hadn't experienced those questions before. And then I just entered into it just with a really like, I don't say an open mind, because that's, people say that all the time, but like a sort of just like a willingness to learn and hopefully to just communicate what people were telling me as clearly as possible. And because I had lived there for 2 years, people have blind spots with anything where they go into a space and they're trying to tell a story. You know, you can't just give all of the information just in a row. No one's going to listen to that. You have to make it tell a story. And Finn Ranson, who's the young man who did a lot of the editing and worked on a lot of the scripting with me, who really did given, you know, he's very early in his career, he really worked out his skin to help make this thing happen. But you have to be very almost academic about it, I think, because you need to make sure that even if there are bits that you don't want to miss stuff, right? But it's a massive topic. So I think you have to just enter into it with like a sincere desire to do the best for all the people involved and all the people who might listen that you can. And I think in the end, and that's what lots of the documentary makers I spoke to said to me, that's really the best you can do. Like I had a couple of experiences where I spoke to some people and people I knew, and they didn't really get what I was trying to do, and were a bit like suspicious about what the plan was. And nobody who I'd become friendly with in Qatar would speak to me on tape, as in actual Qataris. So there was one or two voices that we got on there. There were some officials effectively that we spoke to, and there was one or two girls who spoke but anonymously. And I think that tells you quite a lot, because really what's fascinating about Qatar is that all of its citizens, and there are very few of them, as in 250,000, something like that, because everybody else who lives in Qatar is a migrant worker, effectively, from me working in telly down to the guys who are killed making the stadiums. The people of Qatar are effectively all PR agents for Qatar, not in any like, I mean, that maybe sounds a bit sinister, but it's not even really, it's like just how they're brought up. Like, we are a tiny country, we're punching above our weight, we've suddenly got all this wealth, and we're going to like make an impact. And so I think that's very deeply rooted in the most of the people of Qatar. And so that's a challenge when you're trying to weigh up like how you tell the story. So yeah, I did take it very seriously. And because in some people, you know, as we know, some people were kind of in danger from talking about this sort of stuff. So yeah, I hope we did the best we could, and I feel good that I kind of took all the steps that I could to make it as safe for
in that sense. I mean, in that sense, just I know you've been involved in lots of projects and stuff, but did you when you're filming that kind of thing, or recording, sorry, as it is, Did you realise it was going to maybe go as big as it did and go as far-reaching as it did, or was that just sort of, at the time you're just focusing on what it is that you set out to do in that sense?
Oh God. Well, I think I knew I was pretty much the only person who could tell that story, because I was pretty much the only person with the background in the country, but also the freedom, because everybody else I know who would know about that sort of stuff and is maybe British is still like being paid effectively by the state of Qatar.
I get that. Yeah.
So I think I recognized that it was then or never, right, in terms of telling the story. Like, the World Cup's hopefully only going to happen once there. And so I think it could have, I know this might sound a bit self-important, but I think it could have been bigger than it was, Charlie,
Right.
really, because
Okay.
because in terms of the stories that you're telling, like, these people have never been heard to speak, and the fact that we got girls on tape talking about what football means in their country, that's like unheard of. That's never happened in that context, and I don't see how it would happen again in the near future. So yeah, actually, I think, people talk about the mainstream media or whatever. There's not, I don't think there's some like global conspiracy around this, but there is hesitance because people don't know lots and lots about these subjects, and so they would tend to be a bit more like, okay, I don't know a lot about this, so this person's over there doing this project, I'll just leave them to get on with it. But lots of people listen to it. So yes, to answer your question, no, I mean, I was impressed that so many people were so curious, and I love that, the fact that they had to effectively seek this out. It was on an independent platform.
Oh no, I think in that sense, I think you were obviously rewarded for that in that, the plaudits you got afterwards, but there was obviously a lot of hard work and dangerous work by the sounds of it that went into that. Obviously, on a slightly lighter note, in that obviously off the back of the nature of it, but it does come that, I suppose it's always a hard sort of topic. It's an amazing thing that you did, but it's always maybe a hard topic to follow then, isn't it? Like projects and things like that. Obviously, you're involved in lots of different things in lots of different sports. Is there, without really revealing too much of the magic, is there maybe a more unglamorous side that we don't see as well? Because we just see you on TV and we see, you get to speak to all these amazing people, superstars in whatever sports. I'm thinking even like maybe when you did work on Final Score and stuff like that, is there any sort of bits that are like, do you know what, this is a far change from interviewing Erling Haaland or something like that? I don't know. Do you know example? So
we kind of, I mean, there's lots of like technical challenges going on, and often if I'm on site, quite often there's like breakdown of communication, or like I might be expecting to hear stuff from the gallery that I don't then hear, or we might become effectively disconnected. So I'm just sort of making it up as I go along, just hoping that it comes across like a normal TV program. Probably the most extreme example of that, though, would have been presenting the England Test tour of India at the start of this year. So huge Test series for cricket fans. I don't know if you have any who listen to your show, but it India being the nation that they are in cricket, and the team that they have, and the kind of transition point potentially that the England cricket team is in. It was a big moment, and there are some beautiful stadiums, beautiful grounds that the cricket goes to in that tour, and we were doing it the entire series in a green screen studio in Stockholm. So
I didn't know that was in Stockholm. I've got to be honest. See, I never knew that. Like, I watched bits of it. Obviously, with the time it was on, it was But yeah,
at the time, Charlie. So I imagine because of the time difference. So it's like 4.5 hours or 5.5 hours. I can't remember. So my call time on the first day, my call time was 1:30 in the morning. So I'm in Stockholm in kind of like a youth hostel next door to this studio. The benefit of which is that it literally was like, get out of bed, go down the stairs, walk across the road, go into the studio. So I very much appreciated being in that location rather than anywhere else. So yeah, I'm just like in my trackies in the snow, as it was at that time, at the start of the year, trotting across the road, suddenly there's bright lights happening and people are putting makeup on your face, and then you're going in to have like a check, and it's just a green. I don't know if you've ever been in a green,
No,
like a
gosh,
green
no, no, no,
studio.
no.
It's just a green box. It's just
Right,
a green
okay.
box. So you're just in a green box with a table and randomly Sir Alistair Cook and Stephen Finn, and it's 2 a.m. and you're just like, Christ, what's happening here? Yeah, that is one of the most surreal experiences of my life.
I'm glad you gave that as an example, Kate, because to be honest, we, the three of us who do this, we're all big cricket fans as well. So we watch fits, as I say, with my job, it's not as easy to start at sort of 3 a.m. or whatever, but, in that sense. So, but for us, it was great coverage. And I'm not just saying that, really, really enjoyed it. And the sort of the dynamic between, you and Stephen and Alistair was brilliant. Even though you called yourself a prick in a different article. I don't know what that was about, but that's, like the.
Yeah.
But the point being was that we really enjoyed it, but I had no idea, like you say, it was basically in a box next to a youth hostel in Stockholm, which that sort of side blows your mind, doesn't it? We just see you speaking to Knights of the Realm, not not like seeing the other side of it.
It was a lot of fun. It was just very odd.
When you're just left university, and if you'd have said in how many years, then you'd be doing that. You'd be doing that.
I was just going to say the other thing, of course, is about Test cricket. It's very long, right? So we just not only are we in a green box, but we're also in a green box for whatever it was, like 9 hours, and we'd pop out a bit to like get a Mackie. Like someone would have to go out and get us Mackies because we couldn't like miss lots of the action in case sometimes the guys were chipping into some of the commentary.
Right.
But yeah, by the end of the day, you sort of came out, and I would make sure to like go for a walk and make sure to see some sunlight, because it's probably not very good for you to not see any sunlight for an entire day. But then you'd have to basically go to bed at 6 p.m. So yeah, the people of Stockholm, if they walk past me at any point, sort of sliding along in the snow, completely disorientated, just like muttering on about wickets and like baseball or whatever. Oh my God. It doesn't bear thinking about.
That's the thing, Kate. I think we all, as I say, we don't see that side of it, and there's the excitement of all of it. But actually, So I think you've earned your stripes in that sense, haven't you, with that regard? Just in terms of your career at the moment, without revealing, stuff you can't reveal or anything, is there anything else in the pipeline that we can sort of be looking forward to with regards to you? And obviously, I know you've just come back from Brazil. I've got to say, when we were setting this up, you just said you were abroad, not Brazil, which is that's a whole new level of abroad. But what else have you got lined up, basically, that you can talk about?
Yeah, sometimes I do get to go to the actual place where the sport is happening, and certainly Brazil was an extremely amazing experience. So yeah, so I anchor for Eurosport. I anchor the mountain bike World Cup. So that involves downhill. For people who don't follow it at all, downhill's the one that you might have seen like clips of on the internet, where it's people just throwing themselves down mountains, and it's like unbelievable. These people I think some of them don't have the fear centers in your brain, that make you think, I don't think I should be going towards that rock. It's unbelievable. And then in a completely different way, the cross country, which you will see at the Olympics, it's the one where they both go up as well as down. So the athleticism is unbelievable. It's a mass start. So people are like fighting their way through on bikes through these like unbelievably challenging terrains. They're just amazing athletes, these guys. So yeah, so I do the World Cup series, which is 12-ish stops over the course of the summer. So that finishes in, I think, October. So that involves a lot of traveling around. And then I am lucky enough to be working on the Olympics with Eurosport, Warner Brothers. Which is huge. Mainly going to be based at the rowing. So I'm hopefully going to get to talk to people about British medals, which is really the thing you want in your broadcasting career in sport, really, is to get that moment. So don't let me down, guys. And then various other bits of cycling, and hopefully a new podcast, which is kind of very much in the works. Which what I'd like to do is work on like the crossover of sport and culture as well, and with a bit of a light-hearted touch to it, because I really do enjoy just like having a bit of a piss about, and you can't really do that with like, you can a bit on live telly, but there's just not enough there's not enough time.
No,
So
no. You're a lot more
you can't
restricted,
just
aren't
like
you?
go off on a random tangent. So I'll let you know when the name and when it's all happening. But
Oh, brilliant. Yeah, no,
that's
that'd be
something I'm
great,
really
actually.
looking forward to. So there's a lot on the horizon, and hopefully I'll get to do more. I got to do I made a series with Radio 4 as well, which was bloody amazing. I felt like such a like
Radio
serious
4 as well. Yeah.
yeah, serious woman of broadcasting. Oh my God. Yes, so I'd love to do more stuff there. That was one where there was a bit of crossover. I talked about
Mm.
how you find potential in sport and various other
Oh,
things,
right.
education as well. So you might,
Brilliant.
I'll send you the episode.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah.
It was wicked. So yes, all that sort of stuff. I'd love to do more in that space, and that's what I'm kind of building on, because the basis of it, the stuff I really love is like getting out and just having the excitement of the live sport. But I also like building in. I'm lucky now to be at this stage in my career where I can like build in some of these other like more slow burn
Yeah.
projects. Yeah, I feel very lucky, Charlie. I think, you know, the as a career, I know it probably sounds like I just run around having fun and weirdly being in
No.
Stockholm with Cookie and people, but you know, there are obviously a lot of downs as well as the
Yeah.
ups. But at the moment, it feels very much like things are happening, and stuff I want to do is happening. So yeah, and hopefully some more football as well with TNT. So that'd be cool.
Yeah, I was about to say, I think it's a product of all the hard work you've done. And I think, like you say, putting yourself in through those experiences, it makes you, you get the rewards of that, I suppose. So I think you're a testament to that. Things not just being sort of sent to you. You have to work hard for it. And then, you reap the benefits of that later on. Do you know what? I'm not just saying this, Kate. I can honestly talk to your career about all morning because, you've done so much and we've only really scratched the surface of it. But obviously, I'm aware that it's your Saturday and you need to get prepared for the Women's FA Cup final tomorrow in whatever way you need to do. So, but we
chanting mainly, and banners. I probably wear or maybe
I want to save your voice anyway in that sense, so you're not hoarse for tomorrow or whatever in that regard. We just finished on a couple of quick-fire questions, if that's all right. One of them is really self-indulgent, and it's just me slightly showing off. I've only done live TV once, and I was arrested on Crime Watch because they want to do some things with kids. I know, hang on, where someone had stolen sweets from the school, and they had to work out who it was. And I did live TV on BBC One at 9 a.m, and it's the most terrifying thing I've ever done in my life, Kate. So my quick-fire question to you is what do you prefer, live TV or like recorded sort of broadcasts in that regard? What's your preferred choice?
That's an unbelievable story. They're two very different ones, Charlie. I think
Sorry.
I love the performance element of, if I just had to pick something that's got like the adrenaline stuff, I do bloody love the adrenaline, like of we don't know what's gonna happen. So I had to pick, but that's very mean.
No,
I'd probably
sorry,
pick live TV.
Do you know what it was I couldn't cope with? They kept telling me, don't look at the camera. And it's like, don't think of the white elephant. For a novice like me, it's like, right, don't look at the camera, don't look at the camera. I've looked at the camera. Like that kind of thing. And we were rehearsing from 6 a.m, me pretending that I've nicked a load of sweets. So anyway, that's me going, I'm waffling now. It's meant to be talking about you. But yeah, it was the most terrifying thing I've ever done. And, I don't know how you do that on a daily basis, to put it politely. So I've got 2 more quick-fire questions for you, Kate. What's your favourite ever football ground you've ever been to, apart from White Hart Lane?
I might get pelters for this. I think it's Ibrox.
Oh, okay. No, I've been there a few times. Yeah. It's a brilliant football ground. It is.
Yeah, I think it has that thing that we talked about earlier, those sort of grounds with the heritage and the sound that you get when it's packed and it's a big night. There's something special about it. Even the cold, it's quite like evocative. Yeah, I did a couple of games, maybe 3 or 4 games for Rangers TV a few years ago.
Okay.
And so I was lucky enough to go to some games, and I really enjoyed it. But I think just that stadium, there's something really special about it, and it's the historical nature of it as well. You really feel it coming through the walls.
Yeah, it's very hard to replicate that. No, I've been there a few times. It's probably one of my favourite grounds as well. Just friends of mine are Rangers fans, and I've just sort of gone up with them. But yeah, although I don't know, I think the Old Firm is the one you want to go to. I've been to like Rangers versus Livingston, which probably doesn't quite carry the same sort of atmosphere. But our last question, this series actually started as us just interviewing like friends and fans that we knew and things like that about their favourite ever football match. Which at the same time, and I'm not exaggerating, about 3 weeks later, Jamie Carragher brought out a similar series and completely kiboshed us, basically. I know this was going back just before the lockdown, it was about 2018, 19, whatever it was. But we still keep that question, whoever we're talking to, whether it be, broadcasters, media, footballers, whatever. So just as a football fan, and it doesn't have to be about with the team you support, whatever, but what's your favourite ever football match you've ever seen?
This is a weird, I don't know why I've gone I'm going for this one, but it's a very weird. No, I don't. This is more like the one I feel the most like emotional about.
That's
I
what we
don't
like.
because there was so much around it that subsequently came out, and that after the game was actually really not great. But I was lucky enough to be at the final of the Euros, the men's Euros.
Right. Okay.
Um, and of course England didn't win.
No.
But as a moment in time, I was really near whether I was there as a fan. I was really,
Yeah.
really lucky to be able to go. Basically, yeah, a friend of mine did me an unbelievable favor to
There's
get
favours
to
and then
get.
there's that, isn't there? To be fair,
Yeah.
that's like a whole new
Oh my
level
God,
of.
this girl. Yeah, she is amazing. And we were pretty much like where the penalties were being taken.
Right.
And just in terms of like everything, obviously it was completely heartbreaking.
Yeah.
So it's not favorite in the sense of, like my favorite
No,
football
no.
game that I've ever been to was probably like Tottenham playing Everton on a sunny afternoon at the end of a few seasons ago, just after we got into the Champions League final,
Yeah.
because I just never felt so happy in my life. I was just
Right.
mincing about, like hugging every Spurs fan I ran into, and it didn't matter to go to a
No.
game that doesn't matter, but with the team that you support
Mm.
about to be in the Champions League final, like, come on.
Yeah.
But in terms of like an absolute historical moment, yeah, being in
Yeah.
that final felt like something I will never forget, for many, I'm afraid, negative reasons as well, in terms of
Yeah.
like what went on in the crowd. But in terms of standing there looking at these young boys lining up to particularly the penalties,
Yeah.
wow,
And I
that's
suppose
football.
for our sort of generation, that was the first time we've seen that. And I don't know if we all sort of see in like home soil in a final of a major championships. I think so. Yeah, I could completely get that, even given the negative result and maybe other bits, why it would be.
I have
why it would be
goosebumps.
incredible.
I have goosebumps thinking about
Yeah.
it.
Do you know the worst thing for me was I had a job interview the next day, so I couldn't on the Monday morning, which I got, which was fine, but I couldn't have a drink or
Yes.
anything. I was like, I was just at that point. It was just like, I couldn't drown my sorrows. I couldn't, like, whatever happened, I knew that after the game I was pretty much done for. Like I couldn't, commiserate or celebrate if we won, but it is what it is. But
that is professionalism. I'm glad you got the job.
Well, thank you very much, Kate. I think it was down to the fact that I didn't have 12 pints of, after we lost the Euros, whatever. So it might have been down to that. But no, do you know what, Kate? It's been an absolute pleasure. And as I say, I really appreciate, as you discussed, how busy you are for you taking the time to talk to us. So, it's been probably one of my favourite interviews doing this. So thank you so much for giving up your morning to talk to me.
Oh, you star. This has been such a lot of fun.